Can we do that with my grade?
The function f and g are given by f of x equals the integral of 0 to 3, 4 plus t squared square root. Wait, how do you read that? Anyways. Yeah, that, what you just said. dt and g of x equals f of sine of x. Part A. Find f prime of x and g prime of x.
So let's find f prime of x first and then plug that into g prime of x, because as we see, it's like the composition, okay? Now looking at this, when you have a variable x and a variable t, that is our second fundamental theorem of calculus, meaning all you need to do is plug this guy into that tiny t right here. So we have f prime of x is equal to, so square root of 4 plus the 3x goes in, square still remains. And then the rule was, now you derive the upper bound. What is the derivative of 3x?
3.
3. Then we have minus. And now let's plug in the lower bound. So we have square root of, that's a weird 3, 4 plus 0 squared. And when I derive the 0, what do I get?
0.
So do I really need this at all? No. So for my g prime of x, let's go all the way over. It says our g prime of x, if I were to derive the g prime here, I need to derive that piece too, meaning f prime of sine of x. So we're plugging in sine of x into anywhere I see my x, which is just one spot right here. So I have square root of 4 plus 3x. Oh, not 3x. We're supposed to plug in the sine. 3 sine of x. All squared. And then out here, we need to go ahead and derive this actual piece with the 3. What is the derivative of sine? Cosine. You can write out the minus 0 if you want, but that's not really needed. So that part is done. Let's go to the next piece. Stella, let's read.
Write but do not evaluate an integral expression that represents the maximum value of g on the interval 0 to 2x plus magnitude pi. Justify your answer.
All right. So we want to find the maximum of g. And to find the maximum, that means we're looking at g prime of x must equal 0. Didn't we already have g prime of x already evaluated right here? Okay, so let's write that piece. Ooh. So we have 4 plus 3 sine of x all squared times 3 cosine of x is equal to 0. So let's set the first one equal to 0 and second one equal to 0. So when I do, something weird is going to happen on the first one that I'm going to write over here. So I have square root of 4 plus 3 sine of x all squared is equal to 0. How can I get rid of the overall operation of the square root? Square it. So I get 4 plus 3 sine of x all squared is equal to 0. Now what do I do on both sides? Minus. And then what should I do on both sides? Square root. This is where I know I need to stop. What kind of number is that? If you have a negative inside a radical, it's imaginary. And imaginary numbers cannot be graphed, so I won't even know if there's a minimum or maximum there. So that's more of an extraneous solution if you want to think of it that way. So then let's worry about the cosine piece. For the cosine piece, I have 3 cosine of x is equal to 0. And then when I divide it by 3, it's still going to equal what? 0. 0 divided by 3. And we know cosine of some angle is 0 when the following happens. And it says stay within pi to 0 pi. Let's make our order pair. 1 comma 0, 0, 1, negative 1, 0. And cosine is an adjacent movement. So from my adjacent movement, the only one that's a negative, or not negative, 0 is at pi over 2. So we know our x is equal to pi over 2. So now that we have our critical points, let's go ahead and test them. And testing is actually going to be easier than it looks. So we have to go ahead and include our bounds. Our bound was 0 to pi. So we have 0 and pi. And the critical number that we found was pi over 2. So let's plug it in. We have f of, that x was in place of sine of 0. And then we have f of sine of pi. Then I have sine of pi over 2. And we're going to actually plug it back into this function right here. So let's go ahead and write out something. The integral, the bottom was 0. And we know sine of 0 is what? 0. Sine of 0 is 0. All that is 0. So if I plug in 3 times 0,
0.
no matter what function that's going to go in between, if I go from 0 to 0, have I moved at all? So that's going to be 0. What is sine of pi? At pi, is there an up and down movement? No, it's also 0. So we know this one is also going to be 0. And then our next piece. What is sine of pi over 2? All that is 1. So we know we're going to go from 0 to 3 times 1. Meaning for this, don't evaluate the actual value. We know it's positive. So my maximum has to be the biggest value. Clearly, the two zeros are not the biggest value, correct? So our final answer looks like the following. Therefore, f of, for ours, it's going to be f of 1 from 0 to 3 of our function, 4 plus t squared dt, is positive because it is positive.